So you've got the keys, the deed, the house. You own it. Case closed, right? Well, maybe not. Today, we're going to pull back the curtain on what it really means to own your land. And you might be surprised to find out you have a lot less control than you think.
All right, let's just get right into it with the big question. Think about it. You saved up, you signed a mountain of papers, you finally got those keys in your hand. But what did you actually buy? Is it just the plot of land and the house on top of it? Or is it something a little more and, yeah, maybe something a little less?
You know, most of us think of our property as our own little kingdom, right? Our castle, where what we say goes. But in the eyes of the law, that's not exactly how it works. The reality is, ownership is way more like holding a bundle of rights. Picture a bundle of sticks.
So, this bundle of rights, this collection of sticks, gives you the power to do all the things you associate with owning property. You can live there, you can control it, you can sell it. But, and this is a big but, here's the catch. You don't always get to hold every single stick in that bundle. Some of those sticks, they already belong to someone else.
So you're probably asking, okay, who has my sticks? Well, the first group with a major claim on your property is, you guessed it, the government. It turns out that all private land everywhere in the US is subject to 4 basic government powers. Now, to make this super easy to remember, there's a great little mnemonic, P-E-T-E, or PETE. That stands for police power, eminent domain, taxation, and escheat. Let's go through these one by one and see what they really mean for you. First up, we've got P for police power. Now, this has nothing to do with police officers knocking on your door, not at all. This is the government's right to make rules about how you can use your land, all for the public good. The classic example, zoning laws. That's the city saying, hey, this neighborhood is for houses only, which is fantastic because it means you don't have to worry about a loud factory suddenly being built right next door. Next up is E for eminent domain. And wow, this is a big one. This is the government's power to actually take your private property for public use, say to build a new highway or a school. But there are 2 huge conditions. It has to be for public use, and they have to pay you fair market value for it. That whole process of them taking the land, it's officially called condemnation. So let's make that distinction crystal clear. Police power regulates how you can use your property. Eminent domain physically takes the property. With police power, you don't get paid if a new rule makes your property less valuable. With eminent domain, they absolutely have to pay you.
All right, the T in PET stands for taxation. I think we're all painfully familiar with this one, property taxes. And don't underestimate how powerful this right is. If you don't pay your property taxes, the government gets what's called a lien on your property. And this isn't just any lien, it's the top dog. It gets paid before your mortgage, before anyone else. Seriously, if it comes down to it, they can foreclose and sell your property to get their money. And that brings us to the last letter in PETE, the other E, escheat. It sounds like a strange old-timey word, right? But the idea is actually pretty straightforward. If a property owner dies without a will and has absolutely no heirs, or if a property is just completely abandoned, the government can step in and take ownership. It's basically a safety net to make sure property doesn't just end up in limbo, completely ownerless. Okay, so the government has its hands on a few of those sticks from your bundle. But guess what? They're not the only ones. There are also private individuals and companies that can have claims on your property, which can limit your rights even more. The official legal term for any of these private claims is an encumbrance. A great way to think about it is like a little cloud hanging over your property's title. It's a burden. It doesn't mean you can't own it or sell it, but it does mean there's a limitation on your rights that you have to deal with. So what are we talking about here? Well, the most common ones are things you've definitely heard of. A lien, for instance. Your mortgage is a type of lien. It's a claim against the property until a debt is paid. Then you have easements, which give someone else the right to use a part of your land for a specific reason. Think about the utility company needing to access power lines. And of course, there are deed restrictions, which anyone in an HOA knows all about. You know, rules about how high your fence can be or what color you're allowed to paint your house. Easements are really interesting, actually, because they can pop up in a few different ways. Someone can just grant one in a deed. A seller might keep one for themselves. That's called a reservation. And get this, one can even be created over time if someone uses your land without permission for a long enough period. Wild, right? And sometimes, if a property is totally landlocked with no way to get to it, a court can step in and create an easement out of pure necessity. All right, so we've talked about the government's claims and we've talked about private claims, but that bundle of rights we mentioned, it doesn't just stop at the dirt you can see.
There are other really important rights that go way beyond just the surface of your land. For example, let's talk about water rights. If your property touches a body of water, you get certain rights along with it. It's pretty simple to remember. Riparian rights are for rushing water, like a river. Littoral rights are for water that's larger and languid, like a lake or the ocean. These rules basically determine what you can and can't do with that water. And here's a concept that blows a lot of people's minds. What about what's underneath your land? Mineral rights, we're talking oil, gas, you name it, can actually be sold completely separately from the surface land. So yes, that means someone else could literally own the rights to everything beneath your feet. And in a lot of states, their right to get those minerals is dominant, meaning they can come onto your land to access them. Okay, one last key term for you is appurtenance. All that means is something that runs with the land. It's a right or an improvement that's so attached to the property that it automatically transfers to the new owner when it's sold. Think about buildings, fences, or even an easement that benefits your property. It's all part of the package deal. So when you put it all together, you can see that owning property isn't like owning a single solid gold coin. It's so much more like holding a handful of sticks from a much, much larger bundle. And it's a bundle that you're sharing with the government, with your neighbors, and sometimes even with people who owned the land long before you did. Now look, the point of all this isn't to discourage you. Not at all. It's about being a smart, informed owner. It's about empowering you so you know exactly what you own, what your limitations are, and what your rights are. So that just leaves one final question for you to think about. Now that you know what's in that bundle, which stick is the most important one to you?